I now have the privilege and the honor of introducing to you somebody else who was there with us in the struggles, and that is Rosemary Lopez. She is the Executive Director of the AIDS Center of Queens County, otherwise known as ACQC. And I was talking to Rosemary earlier because Rosemary and I go back pre-AZT, when LGBT, or mostly gay men, were dying of AIDS. And I was reminiscing with her, and when nobody else would touch us, our lesbian sisters were there for us. And yes, and sometimes I think we forget that, but they were there to nurture us, to take care of us, to touch us, to hold us, and to tell us that they would be there with us every step of the way. And Rosemary now is the Executive Director of ACQC, but she has been through all of those struggles, and she knows them personally, and she's a great friend, and I'm honored to know her. So, ladies and gentlemen, Rosemary Lopez.
And I have to say, Tom, Dwayne, and Danny are my heroes. He just outed me as a lesbian, as you realize. You knew, right? But ACQC is in the house, and we are in Manhattan, and the LGBT Center has always been a place where I went to act up, okay? But we're all here today. We're in Queens. ACQC has been around for the last 33 years, okay? We are an organization that was funded by well-intentioned board of directors, who many of them were affected with HIV and infected with HIV, and people that are not here any longer, and I represent all of them. They brought the services to Queens because people were too sick to get to Manhattan. I have worked in HIV for the last 30 years, starting at hospitals, City Hospital, where people would not touch individuals, would not even give them their dinner. I was able to stay and feed people and give them some comfort and teach the nurses and doctors and the clients how to talk to each other, how to really talk to each other. ACQC, I don't know if everybody knows, but ACQC was the first organization to fund Queens Pride. Without ACQC, they would not have been able to get a permit for the parade. So we funded them. I've been at ACQC now for 24 years. I'm now the executive director. I ran all the programs for the last 23 years. We have excellent staff that are still very, very personally committed to the clients that we service. But I have to say, 33 years ago, when we started, we were met with a lot of resistance. We were met with verbal and physical abuse throughout our sites that were being opened. We were dealing with a lot of death and dying. When I first came to ACQC, we were having memorial services. We were having buddy programs or hospital discharge programs. I mean, we felt like we were alone in the struggle because many of the clients that came to us, we were their family. They didn't even tell their family of their diagnosis, okay? And we created a very safe environment for the LGBT community. We were their family. We did as much as we could for them, working. No one at the agency works 40 hours a week. We work as much as it needs to be done for the community that we service. They were scared to tell people about their HIV status. But now, as we fast forward what's happening, you know, the cocktails were toxic. Now it's 1 pill a day. PrEP and PEP really have proven to lower the incidence of HIV. And we're ending the epidemic. We're ending the epidemic how we know it. But it's now an epidemic of color, okay? It's an epidemic of poverty. So all the services that we have that we're out there doing need to continue. They don't have the voices that ACT UP had, okay? I was part of ACT UP. The voices that I try to get from our consumers, they're still afraid to come out. There's still a stigma. The stigma that was 33 years ago is still a stigma in Far Rockaway. Okay, they're still afraid. And I have to say, with PrEP and PEP, with, undetectable means untransmittable, we're dealing with a lot of clients who are here illegally. They're immigrants. They're afraid of their status. They need housing. They need work programs. In the past, we helped people die with dignity. Now we're helping people live, okay? And we have the disease of poverty. We have to figure that out. I mean, 2020 will come. Yes, we'll do all the testing we can do. And yes, we'll identify people and get them on treatment. But that still doesn't get the support services that we need to continue. We have a long way to go with homophobia. We have a long way to go with transphobia. We have a long way to go with racism. So we're all fighting the stigma continually. And I have to say, we can't forget where we started. We can only hope that making this future better for everyone. And I have to thank LaGuardia Community College. I have to thank Stephen Petrus for coming to interview the staff and the clients that have been at the organization for over 20 years, for talking about and saving and preserving our history. Because we're part of the Lavender Line. We're part of the Out in Queens. We are part of the exhibit at LaGuardia. So then I started to talk to Stephen and Soraya. Let's do this for ACQC. And we're doing it now because that's the history we have. We don't have a Manhattan history. We have a Queens history, which is really a disease of poverty. So I thank you. I thank you for inviting us here, because we're not usually invited to an event like this, which is wonderful. Queens are quiet, little, but thank you. Thank you. And whatever I can do to assist. Thank you.